So tonight we're looking at social health. We began by looking at the broken brain, the healing of the brain. We look at the causes of disease and how best we can restore the body to homeostasis or normalcy. And we've looked at how the emotions affect health and how we can learn to manage our emotions. Tonight, we're looking at social health. We will all agree that relationships are very challenging. They are very, very difficult, and we can end up looking at our relationships as a great source of illness. So the question is, what's love got to do with it? We will see that love has everything to do with it. Social health, to a great degree, impacts our health. Relationships between a husband and a wife, a parent and a child, siblings, friends, or brother or sister in the religious community determine our state of well-being. With toxins in the body, acidity in the system, clogged colon, poor lifestyle, relationships will also suffer. Impatience, unforgiveness, the inability to receive love and to give love unconditionally, ineffective communication, a lack of benevolence will all tear away at relationships like acid on a piece of metal. The best treatise on etiquette is that the most valuable treatise is that is ever penned is the precious instruction given, the words that should be ineffaceably written in the memory of every human being, whether we are young or we are old. As I have loved you, that ye also love one another. Love suffereth long and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. It does not behave itself unseemly, and it seeketh not its own. So love is something that is very generous. It is very given. It is not taking. It is not grabbing. It is not selfish. It is not provoked. It takes no account of evil. It rejoices not in unrighteousness, but it rejoiceth with the truth. It beareth all things, it believeth all things, it hopeth all things, it endureth all things. And love, true love, not what the world calls love, but true love never fails. It is a divine principle which does not change by an individual or circumstances. So whether you're happy, you're sad, you're pleased, or you're not pleased, doesn't change love. A lot of what we call love in the world today has lost its savor. Really, it is infatuation, it is lust, and it really is not true love. Fundamentally, we need unconditional love. We need forgiveness. We need joy. If we have love, we're going to have joy. They're partners. in social health. They walk together. You can't have joy without love, and you can't have love without joy. They stimulate the growth of each other. If we have joy and express appreciation, if we take family time together, we are building strong social bonds. Fundamentally, we need unconditional love. A relationship is like a plant. And if you're not nurturing it, if you're not watering it, if you're not giving it sunshine, it will not thrive. So when you were courting and you were kind and you did wonderful things for each other, if you cease to do that in a relationship, or if you're the only time that you experience some kind of little heart flutter or joy, it is only love and joy and peace. It only comes from relationships that are being nurtured. I want to go back to say fundamentally, we need unconditional love, we need forgiveness, we need joy. If we have love, we're going to have joy. If we have joy, we're going to express appreciation. And if we take family time together, we are building strong social bonds. But watch this, we are also fortifying our immune system. A lot of joint and muscle and bone problems, we'll talk a little bit more about that, stems from this issue of love and the lack thereof, or forgiveness and unforgiveness, bitterness. We said love is a plant. It's to be nourished. Home is to be the center of the purest and the most elevated affection. Peace, harmony, affection, and happiness should be perseveringly cherished every single day, every moment of the day, until these precious things abide in the hearts of those who compose the family. You know why we're losing a lot of our partners in marriage, our children to the world and social media and gangs? Is because the peace and the harmony, the affection and the happiness that should be cherished in the home is absent. The plant of love must be carefully nourished, or else it will die. Every good principle must be cherished if we would have it thrive in the soul. You remember what John said, "Beloved, I wish above all else that thou wouldest prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospereth." You know, we've said that the soul is the seat of emotions. We spoke about the amygdala and the limbic system, where emotions are created and processed. So every good principle must be cherished if we would have it thrive in the soul. And that which can be planted in the heart: envy, jealousy, evil surmising, evil speaking, impatience, prejudice, selfishness, covetousness, and vanity, it must be uprooted if love is going to be the foundation of our family relationships. If these evil are allowed to remain in the soul, they will bear fruit by which many shall be defiled. How many cultivate the poisonous plant that kills out the precious fruit of love and defile the soul? And what are those poisonous plants? envy, jealousy, evil surmising, evil speaking, impatience, prejudice, selfishness, covetousness, and vanity. So there is a power in love. So the power of love, love agencies have wonderful powers. Why? Because they are divine. The soft answer that turneth away wrath. The love that suffers long and is kind. The charity that covers a multitude of sin. Would we learn these lessons, with what powerful healing would be our lives? Our lives would actually be gifted. These precious lessons may be so simply taught as to be understood even by little children. My dad used to say children are like dogs. They're like little dogs. He says, when a puppy sees you coming, if you've treated that puppy kindly and the puppy sees you, you return, the puppy comes waggling its tail. But if you yell or you kick at the dog or you hit the dog sees you coming and the dog goes in the opposite direction. In like manner, children's tender heart are easily impressed, and they know whether you love them or not. And when we who are older become as little children, when our hearts become tender and our hearts are easily impressed, when we learn the simplicity and the gentleness and the tender love of the Savior, we shall not find it difficult to touch the hearts of the little one and teach them love's ministry of healing. Because if love is divine, it is a healing principle. So the power of love. From a worldly point of view, money is power. But from the divine standpoint, love is power. Intellectual and spiritual strength are involved in this principle. Pure love has special efficacy to do good and can do nothing but good. Remember, we said the intellect, the seat of the will, the frontal lobe, it is broken, but it has to be healed. And we were going to see, as we look at the life of Daniel, we're going to see how the healing of his brain, the replacement of toxic emotions, the rejuvenation of his body, the stewardship of his time, and many more things, and the rebuilding of relationships with his counterpart, we are going to see the spiritual superiority that he experienced in his life. So pure love has the efficacy to do good and can do nothing but good. So all of these toxic occurrences in human relationship happens because it is not the divine pure love that we are striving to cultivate. It prevents discord and misery, and it brings the truest happiness. And let me say this: discontent, remorse, anger, bitterness, unforgiveness, it rips away at the life forces. It destroys the telomeres in our genetic strand, and it shortens our lifespan. And we live a life of misery, and we die a life of misery. Wealth is often an influence to corrupt and to destroy. The force is strong to do hurt, but truth and goodness are the properties of pure love. So if you really love someone, you're going to be honest. And if you truly love someone the way we're expected to love, your acts are not going to be manipulative. They're not going to be coerced. It's going to stem from goodness. So truth and goodness are the properties of pure love. We need expression of affection and time. Remember, if you don't give the plant sunshine, if you don't water it, if you don't nip the dead leaves off, it's going to wither up and die. In like manner, if we are not expressing our affection, if we're not taking time, we need commitments if relationships are going to last. Also, in addition to all of the above, we need social support. Now, don't look for social support of those who will drag you in the ditch. Go to someone who would tell you about yourself. And in this room tonight, I have a friend who is not afraid to tell me when I am going wrong in my relationships, even with God. We need positive social support. We don't need a counselor, whether it's a parent or a sibling or a friend that would make things or matter worse from us. We need a godly counselor, someone who believes in the truth, someone who would tell us a thus saith the Lord. And I know we're all guilty of giving poor and unworthy counsel to those whom we love. And by the way, we are counseled that no one should be allowed to enter the sacred circle of the marriage, except the powers of divinity and a godly counselor that God would send your way. Love is the hub. It's the hub of health and life and living. It integrates with everything else in our lives. If you don't love yourself, if you don't love your children, if you don't love your spouse, I said to someone today, don't kill your husband. Make sure you prepare food that would bring life. And I am not, don't stone me, ladies, I am not suggesting that the men cannot help to prepare a meal. Where does it start? Does it begin with a husband and a wife? With a child, with parents, with God? Does love become significant, or does it become more beautiful? Is there room for improvement in ways we love others? Can we learn to love unlovable people in our lives? Well, I tell you, if we can't learn to love unlovable people, we've got to go back to the drawing table, because we were counseled that we should love even our enemies. And I'm going to be the first to say it is not easy to love everyone. But if we ourselves are healing, if our broken brains are healing, if we are replacing our toxic emotions with positive, healthy emotions, if our bodies are being rejuvenated, we are going to build strong bonds and strong relationship. Let us determine what love really is. Love is slow to suspect and quick to trust. Today I was speaking with a friend from way back when, and we were talking about the jealousy that plagued relationship, the insecurity, and parents, that's why it is so essential that you raise your children to be secure, because an insecure child grows up to be an insecure adult. And you can't be with all the negatives and criticizing and condemning and putting a child down and expect that child to think of themselves worthy. But last 2 nights we spoke about how we can begin to change the brain pattern, how we can begin to unlearn, to learn and relearn the way we ought to think about ourselves. It is slow to condemn. It is quick to justify. It is slow to offend and quick to defend. It is slow to expose and quick to shield. One of the worst things is when a parent can humiliate a child in the public, or a spouse humiliate another in the public. We have what is called the Pecking Syndrome. The husband is abusive to the wife becomes abusive to the children, and the older ones become abusive to the younger ones, and they become abusive to the animals in the home if they so have them. So love determines the way we relate to each other. It is slow to reprimand. It is quick to forbear. It is slow to criticize and quick to give. Let me say this to you. If all you do in your life and your relationship is criticize, let's clean up that colon. Let's heal the liver. Let's alkalize the blood, and let's begin to heal that broken brain. Because the only way, if you are filled with negativity and toxicity and acidity, all you're going to do is criticize and condemn those in your circle to love. It is quick to give. It is slow to hinder. It is quick to help. It is slow to resent and quick to forgive. It is slow to provoke and quick to conciliate. So if your partner or a member of your love circle is miserable and critical and reprimanding and resentful and provoke, if you are healing, if your colon is clean and your liver is clean and your blood is alkaline and your broken brain is being healed, guess what? It's going to fall off of you like water off of a duck's back. So let's work on ourselves. And here we have a few texts: Proverbs 18:22, 1 Timothy 3:12, and Hebrews 13:4. Take a note of those. Time would not allow us to get into those, but just take a look at those texts and you will see the relationship with what love has to do in strengthening the hub or the foundation. When there is love, we take care of ourselves. When we love ourselves, we do not have self-destructive behaviors. We catch ourselves. And like today, I was hungry, and when I was preparing my smoothie, I wanted to pull some berries and eat. And I said, no, you are worthy. You are wonderfully and perfectly made. And so you might be saying, well, what? Berries? Snacking? Well, if you miss the lecture, you'll find it on YouTube, because at any time, if I had taken a berry or two and I had taken the smoothie after, the berries would be dumped as waste and toxins as the smoothie comes in the body. Good food, but it would not have had enough time for digestion and absorption. The real union is a lifelong experience. To gain a proper understanding of the marriage relationship is the work of a lifetime. You know, I read a lot of love stories as a young girl, and when I got married, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, this is going to be a novella or a soap opera. Well, guess what? I found out that relationships are not easy. But right up until my husband of 43 years died on my breast, I realized that it is something that takes continuous work. And we will see what are some of those tools that we need to implement in our lives if we are going to experience this kind of love that eventually God gave my husband and I through seasons of growing pain. Those who marry enter in a school from which they are never in this life to be graduated. So you're constantly learning. And you know what? When my sister testified about the changes in my marriage life, she said, my brother-in-law did not change. My sister did. So take responsibility in the relationship. And generally, if you're not happy in the marriage relationship, more than likely your relationship with the children, with your siblings and others are going to be affected in a negative way. We know that in Psalms 128 and verse 5, we are told that, you know, in the book of, in Psalm 128, we were told that children are a heritage. Blessed is he who has his quiver filled. Parents should not forget their childhood years, how much they yearned for sympathy and love, and how unhappy they felt when censored and fretfully chided. They should be young again in their feelings, and they should bring their minds down to understand the wants of their children. Now, a lot of you may, or us may have been yelled at and spanked, and, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to perpetuate that cycle. I don't believe in spanking. And a lot of people who are Bible-believing people say, I'm going to come back to that, so don't quote me yet. They say, why not don't spare the rod lest you spoil the child. Could that rod be the word of God to guide us in the path along still waters and green pastures? If we were to be beaten with the rod that we should be beaten with, we would never stand. You know, the word of God tells us that if God were to mark iniquity, who could stand? And so when I hear people yelling at children like if they are part of the lower animal kingdom, it rips my heart. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had my share of yelling and smacking. I've spanked one child 3 times. The 3rd time I spanked, I knew I would never do it again. But the point I want to make, spanking must be your last resort, because a lot of times when we spank in anger, and what we are teaching the children is really aggression. And if we would go back and think, a lot of times when we spank, it is because we are losing control and we're trying to assert our power. And many times we're telling children that physical aggression is normal. They should be young again. We should be young again in our feelings. And even if we were yelled at and we were mistreated, we should strive, if we are healing, to change the course. You can't expect your daughter to grow up and feel good about herself and carry herself with dignity when you continue to demean her and her mother in her presence, or the father, whichever. The children need gentle, encouraging words. How easy it is for mothers to speak words of kindness and affection, which will send a sunbeam to the hearts of the little one, causing them to forget their troubles. Learn your child's personality. This is what I'm telling the children about my newborn grandchild. As long as you understand, take the time to understand the temperament and the personality of a child, and as they begin to grow and cultivate characteristics, you should not have a problem relating with that child. When you show kindness and you speak kind words and you show affection, you're sending a sunbeam to the heart of the little children, and you're causing them to forget their troubles. I am telling you, it's a tough world for children, especially today, even before the pandemic, and the pandemic has made it a whole lot worse. Make your home a haven. Make your home a place where the children want to come to, not a place where they want to run from. Parents, give your children love. Love in babyhood. Love in childhood. Love in youth. Do not give them frowns, but ever keep a sunshiny countenance. I struggle, I wear my emotions on my face and I struggle, but you know what? I endeavor to show my children. Sometimes they don't know what is happening inside. Even when they get on my last nerve, true courtesy must be motivated by love. The most careful cultivation of the outward proprieties of life is not sufficient to shut out all fretfulness, all harsh judgment, and unbecoming speech. Fretfulness, critical spirit, harsh judgment, unbecoming speech, toxic, clogged colon, a sick liver, acidic blood, and a broken brain, which stands in need of healing. True refinement will never be revealed so long as self is considered as the supreme object. Love must dwell in the heart. And that is the divine principle of love. This is the love we are talking about. When that dwells in the heart, something changes in the relationship. A thoroughgoing Christian draws his motives of action from his deep heart, love for his master, and up through the roots of his affection from his creator springs an unselfish interest in his brethren. So if you are not receiving that love, you can't give love. What you're giving is tainted, it's polluted, it's lustful, it is fleshy, and it is not lasting. Of all things that are sought, cherished, and cultivated, there is nothing so valuable in the sight of God as a pure heart and a disposition that is imbued with thankfulness and peace. Gratitude is important. It even helps to fortify our immune system. Dr. Dean Ornish has done significant research on lifestyle and the reversal of heart disease. He's been hailed in the medical community, and in his book, Love and Survival, he makes the following statement. He says, our survival depends on the healing power of love, on intimacy and relationships. I have found, he says, that perhaps the most powerful intervention is the healing power of love and intimacy and the emotional and spiritual transformation that often result from these. Love and intimacy are the root of what makes us sick and what makes us well, what causes sadness and what brings happiness, what makes us suffer and what leads us to healing. You may have said, well, what is social health? What does this have to do with it? Well, look at that statement. It is love and intimacy are the root of what makes us sick and what makes us well, what causes sadness, what brings happiness, what makes us suffer, and what makes us healing, what leads us to healing. In 1965, another psychologist did another study, and his name is Little. He did an experiment, and they found that parental deprivation is associated with delinquency. So if you haven't taken quality time for your children, those are the children that are going to go out into the world. They're promiscuous. They're getting into fights in school. They're becoming bullies. And, you know, we know where the end result is. In 1976, yet another scientist did another study, and he found out that emotional deprivation is a reliable predictor of future delinquency. And so this leads us to conclude children need love. We need love. We need hugs. We need touch, healthy touch. And we need to teach our children what healthy touch is. You know, sometimes in my travels and I go into churches and I see children running all over the place and jumping in people's laps. You need to teach your children boundaries. You need to teach the children how to set boundaries for themselves. So if they are not comfortable with Mr. X or Mrs. Y, that is their choice, their body, their choice. Don't compel them to hug grandpa. Don't command them to hug an uncle or an aunt or a person. Children's sixth senses are super sharp, and they may know something that you and I may very likely miss. So respect their needs for healthy touch. Why? This hugs and affirmation and healthy touch, it boosts the body's immunity. It reduces stress and it induces sleep. They are not only nice, but they are needed. Did you know that touch, hugs, positive affirmation can actually relieve pain and relieve depression? They make healthy people happier. And of course, hugs and kindness and love also reduces blood pressure. Our safest place should be in a love hug. Forgiveness is crucial. Many do not manifest patience, forbearance, forgiveness, and true love. Many have their likes and dislikes, and they feel at liberty to manifest their own perverse disposition rather than to reveal the will, the works, and the character of Christ. The lack of Christ is full of kindness. The life, is full of kindness and love. Are we growing into that nature? In order for us to forgive, our love must not be self-centered. We must admit and confess our self-centered love and pray that God would remove the spirit of unforgiveness. Because I am hurt, because I am angry, I have bitterness, I have hostility and resented in my heart. I feel rejected and I feel unimportant. Guess something that is not in the slide tonight. I found out that resentment, let me begin from the bottom. Unforgiveness is the soil where all of our toxic emotions grow. Jealousy, poor self-image, anger, anxiety, self-loathing, and all of those toxic emotions, remorse, depression. And out of the soil of unforgiveness lies the root of bitterness and hostility. And bitterness and hostility produces resentment in the heart. Do you know that resentment And bitterness in the heart actually raises your blood sugar. It raises your blood pressure. It increases gastric secretion. It takes a toll on your immune system. The adrenal glands are in a perpetual state of secreting and getting ready for fight and flight. And so you are weakening your immune system and you are shortening your lifespan. You are robbing the body of its life forces. With bitterness and hostility, there is also, it affects the blood pressure. Your blood coagulates. The lung uses more oxygen, and the lungs need a rapid supply of oxygen. And the liver is impacted. It impacts also on prolonged pain. Your jaw, you have problems with mental concentration. The lower brain shuts down and the higher brain function is affected, because all of a sudden, when the higher brain should take over, the lower brain takes over, and the lower brain should never be controlled by the higher brain, because the higher brain is the seat of the will, of highly cognitive reasoning ability, organization, spirituality, and morality. And the lower brain is the seat of emotions. And you cannot really trust your emotions unless your lower brain is being transformed. Or else, that's when you start punching walls. That's when you start hitting someone, including your child. So it is important that we must learn to forgive. Forgiveness actually uses all the parts of the brain. They did a study, and the leads in the scan showed how every part of the human brain is activated by forgiveness. Don't create a concentration camp for yourself in your mind. You have the key in your hand to forgive. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 12 and verse 15, we see the root of our hurts: anger, resentment, depression, even suicidal thoughts. And these are all steeped in unforgiveness, in bitterness, and hostility. I'm irritated at the behavior of someone else. I feel that my rights are violated. I don't want to forget. So then we should admit the sensual, self-centered love to God, that we are angry and bitter, and that we have resentment, that we just don't like people. So we come to God and we begin to talk to him. I don't like when Mrs. X says the things that she says to me. I don't like Mr. Y. I don't appreciate his tone, his quarrelsome attitude, his fretfulness. God, I can't take it. And you begin to commune with God about that anger, bitterness, the resentment that you don't like in other people. We cannot change ourselves. And if your colon is clogged with toxic waste, and your liver is failing, and your blood is alkaline, and your brain is broken and not healing, you are going to be an angry, bitter, quarrelsome, resentful person that wouldn't like people, or a person that no one will like. Sometimes even mothers can't like those personalities. We can ask God to show us the opposite of that self-centered love, and that is forgiveness. kindness, self-giving, caring words, accepting and releasing them of the wrong that they did. Forgiveness does not give the power to the person, it gives you the power. Forgiveness is like, unforgiveness is like drinking the poison for the person that you would want to see dead. Words of affirmation, taking time together, gifts, service, and physical touch are the 5 love languages that Gary Chapman speaks about in the book about the language of love. And so you must take the time, if you want to invest in a loving relationship, you must take the time to know what is the love language of your child, your spouse, your siblings, and then you utilize those, the love language. For myself, I love words of affirmation. I like time together, and I'm very lazy, so of course I love service. Physical touch also. Gifts, if the time together is not quality, if you are not affirming what I do, then your touch, your gifts, and your service will have very little meaning. So take time to know the love language of your loved one, including your children. It is important that if we're looking to build a relationship, that we understand the love language of those whom we want to build a loving and a lasting relationship with. Cultivate tenderness, affection, and love that has expression in little courtesies, in speech, in thoughtful attention. Effective communication is something, another quality that tends, so we had unconditional love, forgiveness, and effective communication. They say a woman can talk 1,000 words in a minute, and men can only hear 100 words a minute. Men, women are enticed. They feel loved and become lovable by the things you say to them. So, and men by the things they see. That's how we are genetically and psychologically predisposed. So men, be mindful what you say to the women. But women, men are not mind readers. You need to express your needs, and you have to choose the time when to communicate what your needs are. So cultivate tenderness and affection and a love that have expression in little courtesies. Men, make a cup of tea and take to your wife's bed. You know, help to do the dishes, mop the kitchen floor, help the children with the assignments from school. If the wife is rugged and worn out, she can't even meet your needs later. And if you would throw in the towel and try to help, your love life can be a whole lot more meaningful. The best way to educate children to respect their father and mother is to give them the opportunity of seeing the father offering kind attention to the mother, and the mother rendering respect and reverence to the father. Now, this kind of reverence can only be reciprocated. If you're a bully, if you're verbally abusive, if you're always critical, if you're miserable and bitter, it's going to be almost impossible for the respect and the reverence to come to you, and vice versa. I think one of the worst things we can do in our family relationships is for our children to see the disrespect from one parent towards the other. It is by beholding love in their parents that children are led to obey the fifth commandment and to heed the injunction. Children, obey your children in the Lord, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. If you're always miserable and always arguing and always screaming and always using profanity, it's going to be almost impossible for children to respect and to honor and to obey you as a parent. Communication is a complex relational problem. It is continual and it is irreversible. If you say something, and again, clogged colon, ill liver, alkaline blood, broken brain, poor impulse control. So you are going to say the worst things. I don't think you should wear that suit today. I think you're too fat for it. Or, I don't think that jacket goes well with you. Your belly is hanging over your belt. You know, say kind things to each other. Once we have communicated something, we cannot take it back. Whatever we say, it is done. We can say we're sorry. We can ask forgiveness. But you know what? The destruction of the building bond for a loving and a lasting relationship is already been tattered. We can be pleased that we're encouraged or we're taught someone, and be sad that our messages have also hurt them, right? If we are encouraging and we're teaching, it's a good feeling. I think the same quarrelsome, miserable, critical person doesn't feel good in there. Not I think. They don't feel good about themselves. So whatever is in you is what comes out. The misery, the toxicity, the acidity, the bitterness, it comes out in your relationship and it poisons the air. We are constantly communicating by our presence and our attitudes, even if we do not open our mouths. Even if we do not open our mouths, we cannot not communicate. It not only includes talking, but it also includes listening, seeing, touching, and even feeling. We communicate verbally as well as non-verbally. And the higher percentage of communication is usually non-verbal. So for example, as a clinician, I hear what you communicate verbally, but I also know what you are not communicating non-verbally. Highly, highly aware. Here are some thoughts to ponder. And I want you, I threw this out to check your brains. Men talk more than women. Women jump to conclusion more than men. It is often difficult to voice our opinion when we disagree with a family member. Women don't say what they mean. Too much talk is worse than not enough. Men speak more logical than women. Women are more emotional than men. Wives communicate like their mothers. That one, to a great degree, is true. And these are some of the messages that we communicate. We teach our sons to become just like us. They grow up and they in their relationships, the same toxic behaviors that they mirrored from you and our daughters mirrored from us is what we bring into our relationship. So we see our children and our grandchildren with this perpetual circle of dysfunction and chaos. And some of us even pride ourselves in saying, oh, we have done our best for our children. Well, something has broken down in the chain of our relationships if we see the mirroring continuous toxic behavior in relationships. There are no wrong or right answers to those questions. But the one thing I would suggest is that we enjoy life with humor as we communicate. We brainstorm ideas when things are difficult to say. We remain silent, and we can also make a mental choice to communicate effectively. We don't need to, and when I say remain silent, in the midst of a disagreement, my dad used to say, two can't be on the higher horse. Someone has to come down and guide the horse. And so as your colon is cleaned and your liver is healed and your blood becomes alkaline and your frontal lobe is being healed, guess what? You will know that this is not the right time for us to discuss this matter. And so you remain silent or you walk away. You make a mental choice that when I am going to speak on this matter, I am going to communicate effectively. The screaming, the yelling, the cursing, you would not know how it terrifies and how it destroys our children. I know I've had to apologize many times to my children about the way I mothered and lived as a wife in the early years of our relationships. Thank God for the healing power and the grace of the God that we fell in love with and came to honor and serve. So it's not too late. No matter how old you are and how much the bond is destroyed in our social relationship, be still and know that I am God. Be still and journal your problems away by recording your feelings. If your spouse is toxic, you believe he can hear you? You believe he will take the time to listen to you? Pick up a journal and write your problems away and record your feelings. Be still and don't criticize or gossip. Be still and be at peace. That's one of my goals this year. I don't want to criticize and I don't want to gossip at all. Be still and be at peace. Be still and respect another in studying their character or thinking or time. Be still and don't ask your husband, and I may as well say wife before the ladies stone me. Be still and don't ask your partner or even your child for something when he is stressed. Do you know our children are stressed? They are struggling to make it in this world. The future looks bleak for our children. They are under severe distress. I am learning to be more engaged. Well, we've always communicated. I am learning to be more supportive, more empathetic, a better listener, because I know how tough life is. Was it easy for me as a young woman, as a young wife, a young mother? Absolutely not. But somehow I feel like the cosmos have changed so significantly that many of the things that I had to worry about cannot compare to some of the things that young spouses and young children have to worry about. So be still and don't ask your spouse or your child for something when they are stressed. Don't try to usurp power over your children. One of the things that I did with my children that was very effective, I allowed them autonomy. Children need autonomy, unconditional love, and consistent discipline. And discipline is not taking a belt and hitting your child. It is holding them accountable for what is wrong and giving them approbation for something that is right. I used to say to the kids, the ill-disciplined children are filling up our jails and our prison cells. Allow them choices. Don't control and manipulate them. Would you like to have pancakes for breakfast, or would you like cereal? Do you want to wear this, or do you want to wear that? This is how you begin to empower your children to make choices. If you're telling them what to do and how to do, I think they're called helicopter parenting, then you are going to perpetuate that. Your child will become an adult and they would be indecisive. They become followers, and some end up becoming followers of evil instead of becoming leaders of good. If it's wrong today, it's wrong. Whether you've had a good day, you've gotten a raise of pay, or your boss fired you. If it is wrong, it is wrong. Consistent discipline is holding them accountable and offering approbation when they do things that are worthy of praise. Be still and let the husband or the wife or the child eat dinner before sharing a problem. Make time to talk to each other. Avoid complaining. Avoid complaining. Nobody wants to be around a complaining person. If it gets that bad, seek professional help and learn how to communicate and have regular family counsel. It is very, very, very important. Then the next quality or principle of healthy families, rebuilt relationship, is benevolence. Unconditional love, forgiveness, effective communication, and benevolence. Let every one of you lay by him in store as God has prospered him. Every member of the family, from the oldest down to the youngest, may take part in the work of benevolence. You have to teach the children. Children see. I remember when I would make baskets for the old ladies at my church, and the children were involved, and my son in his mid-teens would say, his mid-teen said to me, how come I always see baskets going out of this house and I never see baskets coming in? I sat him at the dining table and I began to show him what were my baskets. My basket was having a husband who loved his wife and his children. My basket was having a son who, thank God, at that stage and even today, has never been arrested, never been shot at, having a daughter who is striving to live a moral life. Those were my baskets. He said, okay, Mom, I got it. Full circle. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I heard him saying to a group of young people, my mom is the kindest human being that I know. And boy, she's always giving, but she's never broke. And what I said to them was, a clenched fist can never open to receive the blessings that should be ours. So let the children see you, and don't give and talk about it. Don't give and then you see Mrs. X in a skirt and you say, I should have never given her that skirt. Oh boy, I didn't know it was so nice. Teach every member of the family to take part in the work of benevolence, in doing kind deeds for others without hoping to have kindness returned. When I went to West Africa, when I speak about benevolence, I always speak about that experience. West Africa taught me, Ghana, Nigeria, and the Ivory Coast. They taught me that you can have a slice of bread and share, or you can have a loaf of bread and not share. Some of the most giving and generous people The plan of systemic benevolence, this is here made to plans followed early by the church in laying aside the weekly tithes and offerings, will prove a safeguard to every family against temptations and to spend the means for needless things, and especially will prove a blessing to the rich by guarding them from indulging in extravagances. Those of you who are in this room tonight and who believe in the Bible, you know the story about the widow's mite. The rich and the famous, they gave of their extras, their surplus. The widow gave of the little she had. And perpetually it is recorded, her kind deed. So you give not because you have, you give because you desire to share the blessings that you have. And there's a little chorus: the more we give, the more it returns to us. It will prove a safeguard to every family against temptation to spend on needless things. And especially it will prove a blessing for the rich in guarding them from indulging in extravagances. My dad used to say, you don't give a child everything they want, you give them what they need. He said, if you continue to give a child everything they want, they become adults, and when they cannot get what they want, they will do anything to secure, to fulfill their needs. We give because it is better to give than to receive. We can give not only finances, but we can give social support. When my husband and my mom passed 4 months apart, almost 3 years ago, the love and the social support that I had, it mopped up a great percentage of the grief and the pain and the hurt that we were going through as a family. So we can give social support for the physical and the emotional comfort of our family, our friends, our co-workers, and others. It is healing to know that you are a part of a community of people who love and care and value you. And I can tell you, my children they grew into a meaningful respect for benevolence, and also for my circle of missionary friends. We had absolutely nothing to worry about. Everything was taken care of. And that kind of emotional comfort that the Lifeline family and the Better Living group has given to us as a family, I really want to acknowledge you tonight. It was very healing. It was therapeutic for us to know that in the midst of our grief, we were loved, we were cared for, and we were valued by you. And of course, other family, friends, and members. This support can be verbal, it can be nonverbal, it can be communication, it can be sharing care and concern. It could be resulting in a sense of purpose, meaning, and belonging. I remember when my dad died, I was one of Daddy's daughters who was very loved by him. He had a tendency to favor the girls, and loved and revered my dad. And when he died, I slumped into severe depression, and I would lie on the floor. I was sick with an injured back, with an arthritic spine, where I was given a prognosis, Mr. Miller, never to walk again. I know I don't use a walker, a cane, or a wheelchair. So when you get on that plan, you're going to tell me about the benefits of those phytonutrients, that chlorophyll, the vitamins and the minerals in that food that will begin the healing process. But I remember a dear sister and friend, and she's in the house today, But I remember her calling and me refusing to answer the phone. I wanted to see no one. I wanted to talk to no one. And my daughter said she was so afraid that she thought I would never rise out of this melancholy, this sadness and the depression. And she came knocking on the door and she said, if you don't open this door, she called, I didn't answer. She knocked on the door, I refused to answer. And she said, in my heart, I'm saying, go away, leave me alone. And she said, if you don't call me, I'm calling the fire department to break your door down. No, that's not a problem I wanted. I opened the door, she came in. She made breakfast, and I tell you, it was the first meal I had. We even laughed together after she said, it's a good thing you're not hungry and you didn't want food, or else I may not have had enough to share with you. So I am saying it didn't take her much to jump in her car and to drive over. And she said, and if you don't get into that shower, I'm going to put you into the shower myself. That's the kind of showing care and concern that results in a sense of purpose and meaning and belonging. Les, I love you dearly. Support can be informational, which gives us access to advice. So you're buying a house and I'm an attorney, or you're sick and you're coming to me for guidance. I can give you information. I can take the time. Information and guidance, you know. You bought a house, I didn't buy a house. You can give me some guidance about the process. Giving us access to both physical or material assistance. This, it could include money, but it could be transportation. It could include clothing, food, or other physical necessities of life. At the end of the day, all it boils down to is one question. Do you feel loved and cared for? Do you love and care for others? What we give is not always in terms of money, but time, love, and support. Freely we have received, freely we give. Give, and it shall be given back. Good measure, pressed down, even unto overflowing. Now, when we are looking to rebuild our relationship, you've heard a lot of things. Some of you knew it, you'd never implemented it. As you begin to clean your colon, heal your liver, alkalize your blood, have your brain healed, you can begin to rebuild a relationship that could be one of love and sweetness. I remember when I first met my husband, I thought that was love. But through the growing pains and caring for him in his last year, even unto his death, still having some rocky road, but watching him die in peace in my arms, on my breast, made me know that that was a love that was rebuilt, not by our power, not by our might or by our strength. We had to invoke a power that was as outside of us and above us. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are in this room tonight. Love is the hub of our health. It is a divine principle. It includes effective communication, benevolence, doing kind deeds for each other, being able to forgive, and unconditional love. Loving not to get anything back in return. Loving not because the person is lovable, but loving because it is right. What does love have to do with it? Everything. It is the nucleus of our healing, our wellness, and our overall well-being. Beloved, I wish above all else that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. We thank you for joining us in the room tonight. Thank you for being patient, for listening as much